Hello everyone and welcome to my demonstration class. Today I'll be working in acrylics and I'll be painting some of the Scottish lakes, some of the lochs. We've got Loch Sinat and another loch I painted last week, just not from the last week I was painting it from the water. Today I'm looking at it from the land. I'll double check the name of it as I've forgotten. It just slipped my mind. I'm painting two pictures today. I want to show a quick sketchy approach in painting. So I have a sponge ready and I also have a large brush, quite a rough brush ready. But as usual, I'll start with a sketch of overall layout of my compositions. Now I've got a grey background for both pictures because we have quite a lot of water and sky, and I just wanted to have a little bit of a neutral color. And on my palette, I've got some warm colors. I've got yellow, ochre, crimson, and some violet. I'll just dilute it here. You can see it better there. And then from my cool colors, I have some ultramarine, phthalo blue, and emerald green. Okay, so phthalo blue is quite close to our green, but almost like a cobalt blue type of color. And ultramarine is a little bit more close to violet from the blues. My paints are a little bit runny here. I think I've started two new pots and I've got a little bit of that extra runny gel on top. So I think they just run down a bit. So I'll use them and they will start looking a little bit more. I don't need a lot of those paints, just in case if you're thinking I'll be using loads. Right, and I'm going to start sketching with my synthetic round brush. And I'm going to go for, I think, a little bit of phthalo blue and some, perhaps a little bit of, no, maybe a little bit of green. Maybe I'll sketch with those two colors today. Against the grey background, they will just look like a paler bluish grey color. So the compositions are quite simple today. I have a low horizon, just a little bit off center horizon. So this is my center mark, maybe just a little bit lower horizon. So we can see some gorgeous blues for the mountains. Perhaps I can enlarge the shapes of the mountains a little bit. We just stayed in the cottage, right kind of here. I'm taking a photograph from the side of the cottage, right on the shore. I've got quite a lot of green at the front. You can see a little bit of the tide going out, a little bit more exposed area of the rocks, and some seaweed on the rocks. So beautiful place where the seals like to come and the otters. Just going to make it a tiny bit more darker here. Right, so overall my green's probably going to take quite a lot of space, but I'm planning how much water I'm going to leave. Okay, so that area I might just put a tiny bit of violet with it, so my exposed rocky areas will immediately become darker. Okay, maybe this one will come a little bit moving over. Okay. And for the trees, I love this little pine tree. It's very much central in the picture. I think there's a little fold in the paper, but it reflects quite a dark line. Apologies for that. So I think if I were to put that pine tree right in the center, it might be a little bit too much. However, if I were to put my larger tree first, I can then decide if the branches actually offset the center shape of the tree in a different way. I've got a little gate here. Okay, we'll see, maybe that gate could be moved a little bit as well. I'll play with that. And coming back to my pine tree, I think I'm just going to put it a little bit off center here. I'm also looking at the mountain, how much bigger the mountain might need to be. Or if I were to enlarge, so I don't want the mountain and the pine tree to be quite similar in height. So if I'll move it a tiny bit still more towards the left, it just will make it less clashing with the mountain. The mountain will be here. Okay, maybe just a tiny bit higher. I can do all the branches afterwards. So for now, I'm just going to leave it as a line. And I also have a tree on the left-hand side. Might just expand its branches just a little bit more. But I might, we've got another tree here. I might reduce that tree size because it's not as significant, and I'd like to see a little bit more of the sky. I might just improvise on some of the clouds. So I think I might just leave it a little shorter here, another tree. Okay, so that's how quickly my planning will work here. One more thing is the volume of the lighter green. Okay, that little patch of lighter green. How's that inviting volume of light here? Okay. And now I'm going to look at my second picture. So I can plan that one at the same time before I pick up the paints. And here, if I find a halfway through point for the picture, I think the furthest point on the lake probably going to be halfway through. Okay, so somewhere here, the furthest point. And then from there, the bank on the left will come a little bit closer to us. And the bank on the right will start turning as well, start coming close to us. And it's we've got some trees really close. Okay, growing very, very close here. Okay, so I can work and work at the shape of the tree, probably overhanging the water. We've got some lovely shadows underneath of it. We've got some lovely reflections in the water. So I'm just establishing that that horizontal line and how the horizontal lines come to the sides. Okay, and next I'm going to look for my mountain. Okay, that lovely lit up, warm mountain top of Glencoe Valley. So Glencoe is just behind those trees, just in that valley. So Glencoe Valley is in between the mountains there. Okay. Perhaps a little, again, exaggerating the slopes. And a little narrower line. Okay, and another shape here. And then it starts going up. And perhaps if I were to stop it somewhere here, then I've got space for some of the pine tree tops to show there as well. Okay. And then overall shapes of the trees. I can see some lighter trees and I can see some darker trees. So I can have a little playful line of some lighter trees at the front, how they will start. Okay, that's a bit too high for the mountain. They started to go a little bit higher. Overall pine tree line is doing something here. That's almost that perspective line. But the trees have got different height and they probably have got different terrain underneath of them as well. So those higher pines and this angle being taller doesn't mean that it's just showing it in perspective. It's not always works like that with trees and woodlands. Okay, and there's a little island, just a mini shape of it, a little bit in front. That's why if we don't look too close, it does look like all of the trees stand on one line. You can see that these shapes are closer to us. So that's how we see them as well in perspective, slightly different. And I just put it tiny bit more behind, tiny bit further back. Okay. And that's where we see the opposite shore. And I can even see a little bit more lighter greens again, closer to us. And then can work with the pine trees after. So overall layout is in place as well. We'll have some beautiful ripples and reflection of the sky here. So I can find an approximate volume of pale blue. There's a little white reflection where the water is catching the light in a different way. That could come later on. This main corner will remain lovely and pale blue. You can also put overhanging branches of the tree here, which again create this almost a canopy for a panoramic lawn view, and that's always a good thing to have. Right, and I'm going to stop on that for my sketching. Right, and I'm ready to start using my sponge. If I soak it well first, that's why I've got a glove on, so I could be mucky with my sponge. I can gently dry mainly my fingers, my glove here. The sponge remains damp but not runny wet. I want to work with some of the pale blues first to start in my sky, so I'm going to get some white. Okay. Maybe a tiny bit of water because my white is quite dry. And I'm going to go for some phthalo blue. Okay. I can see some bold blues on the sky in my second picture. So I think if I paint it first, then I want to maybe something similar with the sky on my first image. That's another reason why I wanted to paint them the same time. One piece has more blues, and you can see the camera just didn't pick up the extra blues. It's stayed focused on the close-up branches. But on the first image, I quite like the details of the leaves and some of the textures of the close-up trees. So they both complement each other and help me as well to paint them. So tiny bit more white so the paint will last me. Okay, a little bit more blue. Phthalo blue first. So let's apply it quite quickly. Perhaps a little lower into the mountain shapes. I can raise the mountains after. Okay, anything behind the trees here, okay. And perhaps tiny bit more darkness and a little bit of ultramarine for the higher part of the sky. Just want to just gently bring that darkness. Okay, so in some places it stays a little bit more dark, and some places partially lighter, mingles lighter. Okay, and as it dries, I think I will add a pale turquoise to it as well. So I'm gonna let it be for the moment, and I'm gonna block similar color for the water. Okay, some deeper color, perhaps closer to the front, and then there might be something lighter going closer to the horizon. A tiny bit more white. Just making sure that I'm not picking up any extra darkness from my sponge. Okay, there might be some paler clouds there, but it's also just paler blue. On the sky. Okay. And because I have a grey background, if I use a clean side of my sponge, I can blend that blue with some of the greys. I will have some darker tones on the mountains, but I think that will be quite nice to have a little bit of a blend as well. Right, just want to double check that these paler blues are smudging well together so they don't just stand out light and dark. Okay, I can do the pattern of reflection after, but if there is a little hint of it earlier on, that's good as well. Okay, and let's put a little bit of that blue in the sky here, and I can go lighter. A tiny bit more. So I'm ignoring all my trees. Okay, I think I picked up some ultramarine by accident. It's slightly deeper and darker, but I can use it for my top part of the sky. And also for these mountains, I might actually put that one here to test how much darker that will be. That will be beautiful. That will be beautiful. So my sponge allows me to make decisions very quickly. We can touch up the colors after, change the variety of it, maybe even add extra color. Okay, some of that deeper blue will be behind the tree. Checking how much lighter that is. Okay, tiny bit more darker still. And I definitely want to go paler, close to the horizon. So let's get some more white. And a hint of emerald green. By the time we mix it together, it will start giving me a pale turquoise color. So then I can touch the lower part of the sky and still have an opportunity to add clouds if I wanted to. Just working my silhouette of the mountains a little bit more. And because it is quite not a precise tool, the sponge, it's okay to have a little vague shapes, so kind of not shapes, silhouettes, but then define them after. And so I've done almost like a wider line of color. I don't want it to remain as a line, so again with the sponges is quite easy. Just bring in similar color or changing it gently and then softening it. And that's what could turn into clouds or a little more change of that light. And if I use, if I'll wash my sponge and just bring tiny bit of water, maybe not so much even water, but having a clean edge to a sponge will blend and smudge my existing colors. Now it's reflecting. Just be with me here for a little. Yeah, just nice and soft here. And that will be under the tree anyway. Well, this is quite nice. Okay, I think I still can go paler here. So if I'll go for direct white, while my paint's all wet, my fresh white will smudge and will give me a lovely effect. I can work here as well on dry surface and wait for it. Then my white will become very bold and I'll need to blend it in other ways. Oh, well, it's wet. It's all does it for me. Okay, and a tiny bit more here as well. Okay, I've got some nice light. I'm not too worried what's going to happen here because that's going to be under the tree. Just a hint of blue will be fine. Okay. I'm going to leave this corner, I think, for now to dry. If I decide to bring a bit more white, I'd want to have an option to lift it if I don't like it, so I'm going to leave it for now. But the lower part of the horizon, sorry, of the sky on my lower painting could be improved. So let's go for paler blue and again emerald green. Okay, I think it's dried much darker than what I wanted. So let's just bring it down a bit more here. Yeah, it looks quite crude here, so I can use the back of my sponge, partially smudge, partially apply the color. And some fresh whites for the clouds. Might put a little hint of that white. coming in will give me a good connection and comparison of the white with the darker blues. I'm just playing with my sponge strokes, making those preferences, making adjustments. Okay, I think my sponge got quite a lot of paint again. Just cleaning it, and just want to soften some of the borders here. Okay. I can let it dry, maybe a tiny bit more, excuse me, a tiny bit more of that stronger white. I think that's working quite nice. It's not there in the picture, not in that quantity, but I'm doing my improvisations tonight. Really have a playful, sketchy painting. Okay, that's good. And perhaps a little bit more light on the water as well. Now this surface is much drier. I'm just gonna squeeze a little bit more paint. On this paler blue. I can add it dried nice and soft and gentle. I can add my clouds reflecting in the water. Just as again, just as a hint. So if I want to have that effect, tiny bit of water, the back of my sponge, just to drag these strokes. And perhaps this highlight on the water. I think actually it will go better, slightly darker. Okay, and I can touch it up with a brush for some of the sharpness of the lines there. Okay, haven't done anything for the water for my first painting, so let's have a little bit of paler blue again, perhaps hint of turquoise, by a little bit of emerald green. Gonna have a sharper horizon line. I haven't finished the base of the mountains. I might have a little more violet there, maybe partially green, partially moving into a different shade of color. So again, this is a blockiness of overall color, and perhaps a fresher white will come mirroring back in the water. Seeing the shapes quite bold. Okay, and I might come back to a little bit of white. And again, the nuances of color variation could be painted with a brush. Okay, that's good. And if I were to wash my brush, I can work now perhaps into my warmer mountains and lower painting, and then move on into the big shapes of green. And only then I'm going to pick up a brush. Okay, I want to see everything quite close together, how the shapes work together, how the colors work together. Right, and for the lighter tone of the mountains, again, I'm gonna go for the sponge and mix some white with some ochre, a little bit of crimson, and a small dab of violet. Okay, I'm gonna give it a good mix. And that will be my base color. I can slightly vary it by adding one or the other pigment. And that will be a good range of color. Okay, so for example, tiny bit more violet could come more in the center. That's quite nice darkness as well. Okay, my sponge is a little heavy-handedly creating strokes, but it is quite a small picture. Okay, so if I'll just put a big block of color first. Okay, can I bring a little bit more ochre to this? Maybe a dab of white. So the warmth will gently start to appear. Okay, cut away quite a bit of the mountain here, so for the height it will be best to bring it back. Okay, tiny bit more white and some ochre to have that extra warmth on this side of the slope. Tiny bit of red. Okay, that's quite a lot of red. Let's balance it with ochre. Yeah, let's top it up with a bit of violet again. So all that's gonna happen here is that color will be slowly changing. So I'm painting it more or less similar darkness first to find the blocks of color. Right, and next to my island, I'm going to have the lowest part of how much where the woodland will kind of part away for us to see the shapes. Okay, maybe a tiny bit more darker violet. A couple of shapes here. I can leave it till the brush becomes available to use. Yeah, might be just easier to do it with a sponge as a bigger shape. But the colors become united. The colors stay together when it's applied quickly. Right, perhaps tiny bit of similar color at the bank level. There will be some darker tones as well. You might just have a little hint of warmth there. Okay, I can see similar colors in my top painting at the top, but slightly darker version of it. I'll go for ochre, crimson, and violet and make a darker version of it. Okay, violet will be dominating color here. Okay, I can use the tip of my sponge. Okay, that's drying quite quickly. to create those lovely colors and texture as well. I'll do a little bit of dry brushing. Wouldn't be an issue. Again, I can put some more shadows in there as well. I think if I'll add a small amount of ultramarine with these colors, will give me an extra exciting shadow here. Okay. Perhaps a hint of green and some of the borders, some of the shadows of the trees will have a little hint of darkness there as well. And what I haven't done, I haven't painted my reflecting surface below the mountain in the lower piece. So I can come back to my colors. Tend to be a slightly darker version in colors and tone for the reflection than the original. So I'm going slightly darker here. And it's harder to say, okay, where the trees finish and where the mountain starts, yeah? You can see a little hint of that mountain, but where exactly? So I'll work a little softer. Okay, perhaps slightly diluted color. Just gonna wipe some of the paint off. And that's slightly diluted version. Will give me a glimpses of the blue below. Will give me a connection with the whites. Blend it with some of the green. If I'll mix it gently with the green and ochre. Okay, that's quite light. Okay, back to my violet and reds. Kind of type of green I might look for. And then the lovely highlights on the water. I've lost my pale blue line, but that's okay. I know now what it's going to be. And it's easier to apply in a thinner line than to go around it. Okay. But also easier for me to paint bolder greens reflecting into this. Tiny bit more darkness through violet and green together. Just a little deeper. Just a little deeper shapes. And on this side, can quite happily go much deeper as well. Okay, and again, some of the ripples will be easier to do with the brush, but this is not bad. Okay. And again, if I'll wash my sponge. So it starts to look more of wintry colors before the greens arrive, before the highlights will come in. Got a little bit of the green shadows. Just wanted to soften a couple of these lines while they're still wet. Okay. That's all dry now, that's fine. Okay, so some of the darknesses are done. Now let's put some extra greens. For the greens, I'm going to pick up a sponge once more, but where I have a lot of delicate lines, the tops of the trees, I'm going to avoid those areas. I'm only going to think of larger shapes. I'm going to do the darker greens and then the lighter greens. Now both of them could have a little bit more coolness and warmth. I think the most lighter trees got extra warmth, but the cooler ones do have the coolness and the warmth as well, so I'm going to vary that. So if I start with my emerald green, a little bit of white, otherwise it will be quite a solid bold emerald green. So let's get some ochre in there. Let's have some violet in there. Okay, it's going to have similar some of the greens I just had, but I just want to have a hint more, perhaps red in it. Okay, and some ochre. So that might be my darker, warmer tone. Okay, and I can see some of it on some of the larger trees here. So if I'll go for the overall shapes, okay, not painting anything what might be having more details above the tops, but I'm overall finding the size of the pines. Okay, I think that this could be slightly lighter, but altogether in the shadow. Tree, and again I can put some highlights on it after. So I'm working from darks to lights today. Okay, some of the trees at the back will have some beautiful coolness. Okay, any other ones of a similar warmth while I'm on these colors? Yes. I think I can put more similar color, but tiny bit darker, perhaps for the trees here. Okay, I can just about see my lines for the pine tree and for the other taller trees, which I decided to make slightly shorter. So that's a reference need to remain there. Okay, and then it stops. And then some of that darkness first will come on my branches. So if I'll plan them a little bit softer with the paint. And that reflects quite a lot. Just a little bit of dabbing to plan some of the shadows. Okay, and mainly leaving some of the gaps for the sky. I'm just trying to see if I can lift this tiny bit more on the back. And I also wanted to have a little bit of coolness in my blue, in my green, sorry. So if I'll use now emerald green with some ultramarine, tiny bit of white to make it not solid dark tones. So I want that coolness, especially somewhere here. Okay, some of the, just changing the sponge, its direction of strokes. I've got this pointy end of the corner of the sponge. So maybe I will use it as my pointy end of the trees. Okay, I'm impressed that it's working not too bad. Okay, and perhaps some of these shapes, just a variety of coolness, warmth of the shadows. Okay, coolness, warmth, just that mark making is a little, is not the best with a sponge. Okay. Fine. And any coolness for this painting? Yes, I think I'll probably put something at the base of my pine tree. I think definitely some strokes will be done with a brush. Okay, so a little hint of what's there. Okay, and I think the tree which will come up on the top also might have the coolness. I'm not too sure if I like the little scrunchy type of strokes. I just wash part of them off. Just smudging it and seeing if that will be any better, or how the color, because my sky is now dry, how the color blends when I add water to it. I think this might be enough. I will work with a brush there properly. Okay, and now let's bring some of the bolder, big, warm colors for the greens. So again, back to white, emerald green, some ochre. And let's just block that one in. Okay, tiny bit more sunshine with the yellow. Don't want that field going perfect. So that's the reason I've got little variations on the border here. And also I might have the connection to the light on the trees above. And while the sponge is soft, with the color. It's could smudge it a bit more. Got more the light from the back, so perhaps not as much fresh pale green at the kind of facing us. I will build some more light and darker greens on this tree with a brush, and I think then I'll touch it up with some paler green. But what I can do a little hint of it to know how much light I might want to go. Okay. A bit too big stroke, but that's okay. And then again back to my lower painting. Working on two pieces allows me to see a bigger picture of things, not over dwelling on each piece, and also gives me a lot of comparison. What type of greens I have, how much more bolder they are, how much more lighter they are. Okay, sorry, I wanted to go on the lower piece, but I spotted how it's drying. I spotted a gap, opportunity here. Okay. And then the trees finally on the lower picture. They're much smaller. Okay, my island is somewhere here. So if I'll put some lighter trees. Okay, that's very light. Also need a bit of body, means it's not going to be transparent. Tiny bit of darkness. Okay, otherwise the shadows got nowhere to go on top. Okay. And a little variety of that line. There's a hint of red. With a little more lighter yellowish color. And there's still opportunity to work with the brush. Any hints of lighter tones in the water. That will be good to do now as well, as I've got similar colors. And as we have that connection. Soft. Oops. That's fine. And a little bit there will be that. Oops, I have picked up, I think, on my glove. Some of that ochre. Okay, so it's there, but not overly jumping at us. Easier to do it with a sponge than a brush because it's softer. I'll put a couple of highlights as well, which I haven't done with a brush yet. Which I will do with a brush, so I haven't done with a sponge yet. So that's almost to refer to something later on. Okay, anything else on these smaller trees? Okay, perhaps a little too big area. Okay, that should be fine there. Quite like partially this is smudgy, soft. Okay, again, while I'm within these colors, just want to paint some of that density of the shore. Okay, and I can stop here. Right, I'll need to change my water, clean my sponge, and I'm going to start using my brushes. I'm going to start picking up my smaller brushes and start working mainly FEB brushes and working more nuances. So for example, if I'll start with my mountains here at the back, I haven't painted quite all of the surface. I can paint another close up to us mountain, which kind of surrounding the loch. Okay, so maybe let's start with that. So some white, my ultramarine. I think this time I'll go for some emerald green and a hint of violet. Okay. If I mix it really, really, really well, I'll have perhaps a lighter version of indigo. Got some sort of gray tone and present. But if I have it mixed quite loosely, then I will see a bit more violet. And if I'll mix some fresh emerald green, I'll see some more of a cooler type of green. Okay, so I think that's good to go. Somewhere at the back here. So I'm changing that color from the bold blue to more violet in color. And also, now there will be some branches covering my mountain here. Okay, maybe a little bit more green. Almost like mix a neutral color from those three and then go one way towards violet, one way towards the green. I think I'd like to see a little bit of paler greens here. And perhaps even a tiny bit of darker. Not so much green, but more of the darkness. That's nice. Especially close to the water. And again, tiny bit of that green mixed together. Just making a gentle variety of strokes and seeing a little bit more variety of color there as well. Okay, I think that will be good. While I'm on this color, I think I'll work into the tops of Just defining some of the tree shapes from our lower painting. Just double check I'm on the right. Yeah, on the right color here. Okay, it looks a little pale, but it's actually okay. Maybe not too sure about that. That is, let's go for more ultramarine here. Looks a little bit pale on the photo, but I do like that contrast, so I think I'm going to come back to the colors I have. Oops, just find few tree tops. Okay, that looks too blue. Not sure that either. I think it looked quite nice. Less stronger in green and blue. Okay, that's what's good about this painting, but I think a little bit of blue will be good here. If I'll put, so I can wipe shapes off quite happily and continue exploring. Okay, that's a lovely, nice pale blue. Just as a hint, maybe smaller quantities of it. Okay. I think part of the silhouette here of the tree could come as well from the violets and blues to some paler greens. And just building up a little bit of the body and a little bit of the volume. If some of the blue gets smudged and doesn't look too clean, can always put a little mark of blue there. So far I'm just finding the little silhouettes of the branches. Okay, the brush is very, sorry, the sponge is very wide. Kind of want to show the volume of the leaves without painting individual leaves. It's all texture of them, or it's not showing enough. Okay, that's better. So, shoreline. One for the island. Tiny bit the opposite side. as well. It's almost like it's comes in and out. And any of these lines above could be smudged. That's really good. So if I'm working into trees, shadows, kind of one after another, bringing the connection of the colors. Okay, that's good. I'm gonna loop this. I can continue some of these ripples further. And perhaps gently softening it as well. Doesn't mean that I can't bring some paler light there as well. Highlights. Just want to see how it's all dry before doing too much. Right, I'm coming back to my trees. I wanted to work into my coolness of the trees. Now I've got that support of other range of them there. What about bringing a little bit of warmth to the trees as well? Okay, so the nuances allow me to have a bit more focus. Yeah, it's okay. Tiny bit of darkness behind the island, so it just stands out slightly more. Okay. And perhaps even the tree group within the island. That's beautiful. Let's lift that. That's okay. And what about the trees above? So before I overwork the shapes below, I want to move on to the trees here. I do love that mountain dominating the sky. Maybe my pine tree will not go too far after all. If I build it up in a silhouette first, maybe some highlights will just be enough to show it. Wait a minute. So not just the direction of the strokes. Let's explain what happens with the light. I will build up a tiny bit more darkness here as well. I'm gonna let it dry for now. And a little more definition for darkness for the tree. Again, I know approximately where some of the highlights gonna go, so I can compare the depths. I'm gonna want to see how it's going to start drying. Need to see that darkness on my branches. Okay, that's good. Go even darker. I think if I mix some black, almost black from red and green, will give me a really nice dark tone. Put some suggestive branches here. And build some shadows. To darker version of green. So mingling the very dark tones with lighter version of darks, but they're still darks. Perhaps against the darker sky, they do stand out better. I'm gonna let it dry as I'm struggling to hold the board and paint and seat at the same time. So I'm gonna let it dry. Come back to the area where I can see it without issues. So under my pine tree, little tree here. Okay, maybe quite a lot of details there. Well, it is my reasonably central shaped tree, so that will be fine. Let it be and let it dry. And perhaps I use some of the silhouettes to paint part of the fence here. I'll start with a darker strokes. This is a bit wide one. And then I can add a thinner, lighter shapes to them as well. Okay, this might be my gate. Put down a couple of strokes. That's better as well. And to balance my tree here, maybe another pole for the fence. I'm debating perhaps leaving this tree out now as well. I'll still think about it, but I think if I bring more leaves from the tree above, this might compensate that lower tree presence. Mm-hmm. Again, now B. And then some of the banks could have a tiny bit more darkness. That rocky area, a little bit less perfection. Right, and I can work with some highlights on the trees as well. In the lower part of the painting, the lower part is almost there. It's highlights on the trees, it's a little bit more definition on the mountains. It's a tiny bit of highlights on the water and it's done. So highlights on the trees, if I'll use some bolder yellow and ochre and green. I think it's maybe very light, but let's give it a go. Again, where I want that focal point to be, the trees on the island. So I'm starting with them. Okay, tiny bit darker. Some light dipping in and out here. A little more here as well. So let's just make this group of trees to stand out as well. I think I'm making them a little bit bigger as well than they are, but it's okay. Also this paler color, no, slightly warm reddish. So a lighter tone in the reddish color could become some of the pine tree trunks. So there we go, the less I'll see those shapes. Just want them to be a bit more narrower here. Almost, that's why they're appears like little knots with their gentle horizontal lines. Okay, it's maybe a good hint. It's too much. Maybe soften, just have more an idea than perfect shapes. We can use a similar color for the poles of my fence. Just checking some of the highlights. Let's go to water as well. Let's keep it as it was. And up some highlights on my mountains, a little definition. Doesn't have to be highlights, but partially will be highlights. Tiny bit of sharpening at the top as well. So back to similar colors: white, ochre, crimson, violet. Let's go a tiny bit more into the ochre, and perhaps even a dab of yellow, some extra white. Borders. Where's my trees? I might have satellite. Yeah, that's a good as well option. An opportunity for me to paint extra gaps between the trees. Might just stop that light and then start it again. Maybe the clouds opened. We see more light. A little bit more, a little bit less. And the same, perhaps a tiny hint of it on the top. And now a slightly darker and cooler color. A little touch of it. And still cooler with a bit more violet, no extra other colors. It's just a very gentle blend. Addition to the peaks, to the points. So a softer shadow. Just a steeper border. Or even more cooler. Doesn't have to be darker. So if I add more white, it will be just cooler. So I exaggerated it in a nice way. I need a little more light here. That's good. Just lovely playfulness of the light and shadows. It's quite nice. I'm gonna put tiny bit of that warmth as well on the water. I think somewhere here between the kind of in a gap between the island and that's it. From that, just watching how it's drying so I can top up any highlights of the sky. Just gonna paint these ones. They're a little bit jumping at me. I know it's only a masking tape. There were little repetitive marks here. Some freshness on the sky. I've got not so it's all nice and fresh. Just want to tidy one of the corners where it's a little bit too many leaves. Okay, there might be extra light as well. No, it doesn't work. I think that darker blue is fine. I think some of these highlights could be even more stronger. While they dry, and I'll work into my whites. Gently diluting it with some water, so then the fresh whites are not perfectly fresh. They will show the color behind. Okay. This one. It's there, but it's not. It's got a hint of boldness, but it's not too much. Is that the cloud in the water? Is that part of the bolder light? And my paler blue I initially painted and then covered up. This will make it stand out nicely as well. That's it. Tiny bit of water to make the stroke thinner. And then it might come out just at the back here. Just to have that feel of the water, the shore. The little highlight here as well, but not so intensive as in the water. Okay, I'm quite happy with that. Anything at the front here? Yeah, just an odd ripple of pale blue. Kind of don't want to count them all. There's a row of darks, there is a row of blues, there is a row of whites. So it's more of a connection. There could be similar widths here because of that area being so similarly close. Size. I want to be more suggestive than too careful and too perfect. And here I can tidy the sharpness of the shore. Even connect it a little more here with the net type of lines. So just need a little bit more work on my tree at the top. Just varying something that might be where the boats kept. Maybe a little more gaps between the branches of the pine tree. I wanted a tiny highlight, more highlight on the lower painting mountains, and then it's all finished. And I can just tiny bit tweak the top painting. That's a good, that's a lovely color here. Didn't put too much for that area, but the rest is pretty good. Yeah, I'm liking that. And then this could just be a tiny bit bolder. A couple of strokes. And even that paler blue would have a connection of slightly more yellow there, just brings it a tiny bit more forward towards us as well. Happy to stop on the bottom painting. A couple of tweaks for the top one. I think there is a bit more work on the tree, which I can tweak, if not today, maybe another time, but I want some more freshness on the water and to have that sharpness against my off-white and the darker mountains at the back. Look how much sharper that becomes. Yeah, is it continues in the bay? Is it just reflecting? We don't need to know exact details. Okay, some more of that light across. Not too far. And also, as I was developing some light at the back, I'll put some bolder direct light. It becomes like it's right on the horizon. The light is changing. And then in some of the corners of the mountain, and some of them staying as they are. Just want to have a little dazzling light here. Paint a hint of fresher blue, and my branches, they will start being stronger as well, even if I don't do much of the greens. I think I just need a tiny bit more time to pay the attention to the shapes of the tree leaves, but finding little extra gaps or cleaner gaps, already making it better. Closer to the horizon, I'll have more paler blues. This part of the paler skies as well. tiny bit more light as well. Yeah, and then all I've got is to touch that tree a bit more. I'm quite happy with the pine tree being not overly in focus, but it is there. I can put down a bit of lighter top branches, so it's not overly clashing with the silhouette of the mountain. Just need to watch so they're not all the same size. Okay. And I'm happy to stop for today as well. I could do more grasses here or more variations of strokes. So definitely the tree. But the rest I'm quite happy to keep quite calm, quite simplified. So thank you very much for joining me this evening. I hope you picked up a few tips and perhaps we'll do a similar image of your own. Thank you very much, and I hope to see you soon again.